quite frankly, I was personally very interested by the way you discussed the topics of LGBT and sex in your book.
Right.
Considering that these are both still extremely sensitive topics for many people in Korea,
Right.
especially when discussed in relation to Christianity, I was surprised by your somewhat supportive and
Right.
open-minded views on
Right.
the topic.
Right.
Do you think that a change in the way Christians view and deal with these topics, specifically LGBT plus and sex before marriage,
Right.
is necessary?
Oh, it is definitely useful, definitely undeniable, unavoidable. Let me use those words, unavoidable. We can't avoid those topics. We can't sweep them under the carpet and hope they will go away. We can't pretend that these questions do not exist. These are the foremost issues in our world today, and the churches have to discuss these issues openly, honestly, sincerely, and if we consider Jesus came to save all humanity, Jesus came to save sinners, not the righteous. He came to save sinners, which means that we have to present the gospel and love of Jesus to everyone, no matter who they are. You first have to catch the fish and then teach them morality, right and wrong. But if you put out moral questions firsthand and say, Christianity is for straight people, or moral people, or upright people, people who agree with our moral standards. And if you don't agree with them, we have nothing to do with you. That is not a very wise way of fishing for people. Jesus said, I will make you fishers of men. We have to catch them, no matter who they are. We have to catch them. And LGBT is just one of the issues. There are many other, just 20, 30 years ago, divorce was a big problem in churches, and it was a taboo to talk about divorce. Christians were tremendously ashamed if they get divorced, and they just couldn't come to church. And the United States refused to elect somebody who had been divorced. That's how strict they were. But now, nobody makes such a big deal about divorce. The divorce rate is so high. If you forbade divorced people from coming to church size will be reduced by half. And so changes are taking place in the way we look at personal morality. I'm not saying that God's law is changing. God's law doesn't change. But the way we understand it and the way we apply them changes. Just because there are many divorced people doesn't make divorce right. Nonetheless, at least it forces us to at least have a more understanding attitude toward divorced people, instead of just condemning them. Oh, you got divorced because you were immoral, or you are not faithful to your marriage, or nobody has a right to say those things. You can't talk about other people's situations until you have been in their shoe. So we cannot throw stones at people. LGBT is just one of those issues. And I want to ask those people who still have questions and who still hesitate about this issue, I'll just ask them a very simple and very easy question. What would you do if your child turned out to be gay? If your child turned out to be gay, what would you do? Would you kick him out? Would you disown him? Would you deny that fact? Would you cut off relationship with him? What would you do if somebody very close to you came out of the closet? What would you do? Before you talk about whether this orientation can be changed, people can be made straight or not, whether this is something people are born with or something that they pick up later on in life. Before we talk about those things, those are technical questions. But if somebody you love, somebody that you're very close to, that you care for, came out of the closet, what would you do? What would you do? Another question for pastors is, if your church member confessed to being gay or lesbian, what would you do? Would you kick that person out? Would you cut off any fellowship with that person? What would you do as a pastor, as a shepherd, as a man of God or woman of God? What would you do? The obvious question is that you will continue to love that person, and you will continue to be a shepherd and pastor to that person, and you would do whatever you can do to help that person and to love that person, right? I mean, there's no other ways about it. I mean, that's a very evident, self-evident thing. So once you know what you are going to do to a person very dear to you who happen to be LGBTQ, then I think that automatically answers this question. It's not a deeply theological question or a psychological question or even a moral question. It's not a question of morality. It's a question of love, question of human relationship and love and loyalty among people. If human beings can discover what they should do to a LGBT person who is close to them, why can't Christians figure this out? It seems like non-Christians know how to deal with this situation better than Christians. Christians have such a hard time dealing with the situation because they claim to know the Bible and believe the Bible and believe the Bible is the Word of God, and because they believe the Bible, they just don't know what to do. That's silly. That's absolutely silly. Christians are throwing away their advantages as children of God and enlightened people of God by insisting on their old views. Just, I would ask them, what would you do if somebody close to you, it happened to somebody close to you, and what would you do to love that person and to care for that person? What would you do? And everyone we'll arrive at an answer. And as far as the other question, general sexual morality, that is another big question. That is a very big question. Sexual morality is very important, but it is only one part of Christian morality. The 10 Commandments has 10 commandments. Only one of them deals with sexual morality. There are other areas of morality, personal conduct, which are just as important as sexuality. But conservative evangelical Christians tend to focus on sexuality and accentuate and think that as long as a person is sexually pure, that person is moral and pious. I disagree with that. Adolf Hitler, did not drink, he did not smoke, he did not fool around, he did not even eat meat. But no one is going to call him a righteous man. So, there are many other ways in which people can do evil. They can commit morally reprehensive things. And why conservative evangelical Christians focus on sexual issues? The two issues that the American evangelicals stress the most at every election time is abortion and gay marriage. Now, I agree that those are important issues, but they're not so important above every other social and political issues that the Christian lobby has to focus on these issues at every turn. I believe that they are in error. That's why conservative evangelical Christians are losing credibility in America and in the world. There are other reasons that theories that I have why some people just can't let go of this issue, but I will not talk about them. But there are many other things that human beings can do by way of sin, by way of evil, immorality, and why we focus on such a private, sexuality is very private, very personal, and Christians want to bring them out of their privacy and make it a public issue. In that way, I believe European people have a more enlightened approach to personal morality issues.
I completely agree with you that Christians should take a step back, stop, and ask themselves the question,
Right.
What would I do if someone I love turned out to be gay?
Right.
And I don't think not many people would be able to say that they would disown that person that they love just because he or she is gay.
Right.
So I completely agree with you that it's a matter of love, not religion, and Christians should really take the time to think deeply about this issue rather than just throwing rocks
Right.
at these people
Right.
just because they believe that that goes against the traditional
Right.
Bible.
Right.